Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. This week is our final look back at the World Cup in Koper, Slovenia, and we're looking at the final of the -60 female division where Sam Del Rock took home the win against Argentina. So stay with us, it's a good one.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fight Chat Friday episode 108. So we're going to have a look at the -60 senior female division. Again, Sam Del Rock is somebody who we have tipped to do well in that division when we did our predictions. So hopefully we get stuck into this and you can take some good, valuable takeaways that she uses to get herself to the forefront and do pretty well at the -60 division. So we have put some highlights together of what she does really, really well that makes her successful. So here's hoping that you can implement some of these things to your game.
So let's have a little look at the match. First of all, so her opponent Maria Agustina Altamirano, not someone that we were particularly familiar with from Argentina, but they've both come through a fairly sizable division in order to reach the final.
Yeah, and again, shout out to TKD Techers. Check out their channel and their stuff that they have going on there. So thanks to those for the video.
Absolutely. So, a very standard game that we're seeing from Sam. So she, utilizes the reach on that front leg, and is very, very controlling in terms of the center space, the ring or the center 16 mats. Really does like to hold that space and push out from there, and then defend that ground.
Yeah, so like on that front foot there, she's really, really aggressive on the squeezing of the space, but it's gradual, and that's why it works for her, and she's able to link up that leg it's a very long leg, but then she's able to link that with the hands quite well. She does like to favor switching stances now and again as well, Adrian, just to kind of set up different techniques.
Yeah. And and it's something that we kind of we don't see very often anymore. People don't do that very often, and simply because if it signals that change of leg means we're setting up a back kick, a reverse turning kick, or a blitz, it kind of becomes a clue to your opponent. And YouTube is just too prevalent now that if you've got a pattern and that's something that you do before throwing a particular shot, you won't get away with it in the way that, let's say, Hong Louis used to, and others like that would have had a preferred side for particular shots. It's much harder to do now, but it's still done. And you can see Sam, not so much in this match, but in some of the other matches, using that change of stance to take a shot away from her opponent, maybe a preferred shot from the opponent, or to take away a counter.
Yeah, she always switches up her weight distribution too in her stance. And Maria here in red seems to have a little bit of a deeper stance. She's a bit heavier in it, let's say. Where Sam, she varies, kind of having that shorter stance where she's able to push off and squeeze space quickly. And also that deeper stance like we see now where she's trying to lure her opponent in. And that's usually, like we see, to set up some counters.
Yeah, she does hide the shift of the back leg very, very well. So she shortens her stance before kicking almost all of the time, most of the time by pulling the back foot in, but also occasionally by pulling the front foot back before she goes. And that kind of sneaky shortening of the stance does make it a little bit challenging for her opponent to get a read on the distance she's going to cover, especially if you don't act right away on the shortening of the stance to cut her off at the hip.
Yeah, she's quite busy on that front leg as well, which sets up everything else in her game. We'll get stuck into that later on what that actually does, which it allows set up other parts of her game, particularly with the hands. But she's quite effective on it, and she understands that you need to have that worker with that front leg. It's not going to be single shots, and here we see the single shots that are coming from Argentina. It's not what really Sam has in mind, and I think that she has that instilled in her. It's how she fights generally. She wants to get to the continuation as often as possible.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Argentina is struggling with is her own rhythm is a little bit too predictable and a little bit reactive to Sam's. So, she's got a fairly steady and even bounce. She's lifting directly off the front leg, carries her hands in a fairly static position. And so because of that, I think it's giving the initiative over to Sam to be the one to set and break those rhythms and patterns.
Yeah, we always speak about the three controllables you have to win a fight in ITF. Number one, the distance. What distance do you want the fight to be at? Number two, the ring position. And number three, the intensity or the pace/rhythm. And I think for me, Sam's controlling every single one of these from this fight from start to finish.
Yeah, definitely. And we're watching the last few seconds where it's just becoming a little bit of a cruise, and there's a few silly things, starting to creep in. But that's very, very typical of the last few seconds of a match. And, Sam has been 4-0 for most of that second round as well. So I suppose first thing to say is congratulations and well done to Sam on a really strong win. And maybe we'll just dig into some of the details and look at some of the things that she did in order to make that a fairly convincing and efficient win.
Yeah, there's some nice things that she does really, really well. And also, like, the way that she can link up different parts of this is really good, because we see the legs, which is a big part of her game, but she doesn't neglect the hands. She's quite strong in the hands. And then the way that she can link them up is really good. So on this first takeaway here, we see how she disguises this stepping on the foot to disguise the step that you mentioned earlier, Adrian, on the front leg.
Sure.
And then she's able to get that to kind of adjust and put more pressure to link that up. So she's quite short on the entry, which is what we want to see, because it gives you more options if you need to bail. You don't want to overcommit on your first couple of shots to get you into contact, and that's what she does really well. It's nice and short, and then she's very close, just like we seen last week from Alamine, to be able to launch and drive a direct hard side kick if she needs to.
Yeah, and that trampoline effect we've spoken about before, where sometimes off of that short entry here, the leg comes up straight away again, and it creates a kind of a split rhythm, and it offers you the opportunity as well to change from middle to high or high to middle. So as the leg comes down, you can shoot middle, or you can go high, and it's very hard for your opponent to know which is going to come because it's off of such a short stance.
And we've just seen there as well the hand position, Adrian, which is something we will feature in the next clip. See how she's able to stop her opponent coming back at her because of that hand position, and she never really gives up on it, which is great. We see a lot of people these days who are kind of trying to have that style of dancing around and being quite fancy, but you can't give up on the principles of the solid front hand position, because it's good for attack, like we see here, linking off to the attacking of the legs, but also on the defensive side, because if Maria now lifts and attacks with the front leg, it's in a great position for Sam to cover it and direct counter off the backhand, or simply just stop it and stop any momentum that Maria can gain.
Yeah, I mean, in this clip in particular, Maria should have the advantage off of these kicks because she's been the one to initiate, really. But the hands were a little bit lower, and Sam was able to get there that little bit ahead. But what you do some of the time, or what you do all of the time, is important. So you can see the hands are coming up into a cover position, and this is important, I think, as well, particularly against Maria and some of the Argentinian girls in particular, where the reverse or the high front leg turning kick is always there as a counter. So it's just being disciplined around where the hands are being carried, not giving away a soft shot. And you're kind of covering the reverse turning kick, kind of covering the back kick, and as a bonus, if you can be on top here when the clash comes, you can get your front hand in before your opponent can. So I think it's just good, effective principles.
Yes, one small thing as well that is like a subtle detail on that last clip is you can see how her front foot position. So as she drops from the side kick, her front foot, her toes face forwards, which helps her body position. So it's side kick, and now her foot lands, and look at the toes on the front leg. She back to side kick now because she wants to kick. Back to front facing. So she's subtly changing her foot position on her front leg often to be able to adjust between using hands very effectively to get that backhand in, or to use her legs more. So it depends what she wants to do. And this is not really a conscious decision she's making. It's more subconscious based on the training she has, that she's able to adjust that based on what she needs to do in that particular moment, based on the reactions and the opponent, basically, what looks her opponent are giving her.
Her body is following her intent as such. So this next one, we're looking at the ability to cover ground and the kind of pressure it puts on her opponent because she's covered so much ground with the leg here.
Yeah, but even coming off that back leg as well is something that's rare. You don't want to do that all the time, because if it's predictable, it's an option to be countered. But even that big step gathers her a mat, and now the bounce of the mat as well gets a little bit of momentum, like we talk about the springboard or trampoline effect on the front leg. It allows you to kind of bounce and gain momentum off that front leg, and then she puts a lot of pressure coming forward, gains a good couple of mats there, puts her opponent towards the edge, and builds up the pressure down with the hands. I think that one of the reasons that she's able to get the hands is now her opponent wants to fire back with her own leg, like we see there, because of the amount of space she's taking, which allows Sam then to counter that and get over the top with her own hands and be quite strong and effective to get some scores on the board, like we see right here.
That's it. It just creates that stressor of like, oh, I know I've given up a huge amount of space. I can't go back again. I should come forward. And then it gives that example or the opportunity then to meet with the hands. So yeah, so good use of the kind of subliminal psychological pressure there. In the reverse,
Yeah, and again, we see that foot position as well, Adrian,
yeah,
from what we said in the last clip. That foot position, again, is changing subtly every time. You see that small detail of turning to the outside or the toes facing forward, depending on what she's thinking in that moment, whether she's going to go again with the leg, whether she wants to go to the hands, and those small little steps you see when she goes to hands, her toes face forward. So these are high-level skills that you need, especially in our sport, because we're such dominant with the legs. We're often in that side-facing stance.
very cool. In the reverse, then Sam is kind of finding herself in the corner, and because there's been no continuation of rhythm here, she hasn't been pushed back and directly followed in. It's just that the match has moved into this position. She's found herself with her back to the edge of the ring, and we kind of, just from a pure principles point of view, very often in this position the best form of defense is to attack, and she's gone with the legs, ended up clashing, maintained the space, and then next option, okay, well, let's try with the hands. And you can see, again, that little adjustment of the foot. As you said, it's a very small telltale that's there. Maybe the opponent can read it, but there's not a lot in it. It's just that little adjustment of the foot, the turning of the toes forward, and then the launch.
Yeah, and the rolling back fist as well, what we call off that front hand, it disguises the entry on the hands a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy to see. Whereas if you lift it and come direct like a real traditional punch, it's more obvious what you're going to do. So that rolling back fist is quite effective on that front as well. And not only that, it blinds your opponent on that side for a split second. So their vision for that split second while your glove is covering, as we should see just now there, it's hard to see that next hand coming in, and you're kind of stuck for that split second. So that's quite an effective solution as well, to be able to get to the hands a bit more effectively and set up the continuation for yourself.
Sure. As we go on here, just something that came up several times during the match is Sam showing just a little bit more appreciation of the range that's available on her legs compared to Maria in this one. And when she kicks in, she's landing herself at a safe distance. She's not under threat, and Maria has to shift in to take the space and try and make a shot that's going to land. And what that allows is Sam's able to kind of preserve the distance and hit on landing. So really good appreciation of range and of distance there. And, it's not a score in this particular instance, but it does kind of keep Maria wondering, oh, I have to be careful. I kick and then I have to commit forward to go to hands to bring me past the counter leg, but it just splits rhythm. It's kind of like a check just to see if your opponent is are they willing to drop the leg and go directly past? Do they need a moment to reset? And the little check here means no, you don't get a moment to reset. We're back on my terms again.
Yeah, and if you want to be the person who's able to dominate and carry through wins at this level, you need to be able to carry home the victory when you're 4-0 up. And these are small things that make that difference, being able to manage the distance and also always be a threat. And that kind of comes from the shots you land earlier in the match. Like, obviously, subconsciously now for the Argentinian fighter, she's thinking, okay, I could get punished here if I do something incorrectly, or if I make a mistake, or if I go at the wrong moment. So Sam has kind of almost built up that goodwill throughout the match. And then as well from that, she's able to control it at that distance. So she's comfortable at the big range and at that closer range too. So she's fighting the fight on her terms.
I think throughout the fight then, the mindset of I'm going to seek out that continuation and I'm going to seek to maximise my scores really does benefit for Sam. It's where she often finds some of the higher value scores. And this particular exchange starts with quite a good, efficient counter from the Argentinian. Stepping through the front leg side kick, delivering a good backhand, but the mentality of it is it's a single shot. And I think Sam just, immediately shrugs that off, puts it in the past, and looks for, well, the what's important now, or the win condition, and basically puts her opponent on tilt.
Yeah, like for a while in ITF, people were concerned that the sparring side of the sport is going to be a little bit more point fighting style. There was like single shots landing more often. But now in the last couple of campaigns between World Cups and Championships, we've seen that discontinuation is very, very effective in getting valuable scores on the board. And we've seen it time and time again. The people that can take that first shot and continue on are the ones that are getting those big returns on the scoreboard now lately.
Yeah, and I think, again, one of the things we will see on this is, and what stops the counter from the Argentinian being super effective is the position that Sam has carried her hands in as she goes in with the lead leg becomes very important again, because there's a little bit of a deflection that stops the punch, connecting and lifting the head, which might have broken Sam's rhythm altogether. And it kind of comes up off the front hand and off to the side. And I think we see it in the slow motion. It's quite it becomes quite an important little detail that it just shoots off over the head. Whereas if that connects with the nose at the top of the helmet, it probably breaks Sam's rhythm and works out much better for Argentina. So again, just reinforcing carrying the hands in a good position habitually, always, just working out very well for Sam there.
Yeah, just another line of offence, very effective, and exactly like you said, stops her from getting disorientated on that first shot. If that lands cleanly, the continuation probably isn't a go for Sam.
Yeah. This was one I picked out just because, it's a great combination shot. So we have a lovely counter blitz, getting in with both hands and then finishing with a headshot. And the way it was delivered is great. But it's about the third or fourth time in the match that Sam has looked to combine from hands to front leg like that on the open side, and it hasn't paid off before. And I think there's just something to be said for, someone being persistent, knowing that the idea is a good one, just that the execution hasn't paid off yet, and to go at it again. And so we're often very, very tempted, if something isn't working, to just do something else, where maybe the timing just wasn't perfect. Maybe everything didn't quite work, but it was still the right idea. And I think it just persisting with it and proving that at the end is important.
I really like this little combination in this clip because a lot of good things happening here. On the entry, we have that foot adjustment that we see right now. Then the jump, which gets the clarity of the score and puts momentum forward for Sam, which gets her opponent stopped on a split second, and then bang, that allows the head kick. And then her hand position on the recovery to stop giving away a kick to the body from Argentina. So our hand position on the recovery, again, very solid. So I like all those 4 points there. It's a nice little clip to highlight some good aspects of her game.
Absolutely. And the head kick only becomes available because Argentina is firing back. So there needed to be that little, interruption after the jump. Almost the jump, land, there's a moment where Argentina thinks they can go, and then, the kick lands. So yeah, it just comes together very, very nicely.
Yeah, she disguises that kick really well too. It kind of comes up almost like a front rising kick for a second, just lift and then turns at the last second. So it's a nice little disguise as well visually for her opponent. Can't probably see that to be able to block it. So it's a nice little shot.
That's it. The toe comes over you, tickle the ear.
Yeah. We can't talk about Sam Del Rock either without that cool sticker that she has on the helmet from Prince Station. That's pretty cool and becoming a bit of the brand of some people there now in ITF. So it's cool to see people bringing their own flair and personality to the sport as well, which is cool.
Well, that was the thing for so long with the helmets. It was hiding everybody's face. You couldn't really as easily recognize people. The hairstyles were irrelevant. So I suppose that's why you went with the beard, wasn't it, at the time?
That was it.
Yeah. That was the entire reason. But it's really nice to see that little bit of personalization, and why not? Something a bit fun.
Yeah. Really cool. So yeah, I'm very impressed with Sam's performance there. Anyway, some real good takeaways, and I think some solid principles that anybody, no matter what your level, you can definitely take something from that and put it into your game and work on that. Just pick one thing, something that will resonate with you, and get working on that and try to bring that into your game as often as you can. Maybe you can start off by just maybe getting the feel for whatever that movement is or that movement pattern, and then start to build that into your live training as quick as you can, and try to put it to the test against live training partners.
For sure. So for us, that's it for this week. A big thank you again to Matthew Da Silva and TKD Techers. So check out their stuff. That's where we have the video this week from, and they have an awful lot in their training hub and so on. So huge thank you to Master Da Silva. We'll see everybody next Friday, where we're going to branch away from the World Cup. Finally, we're going to be having a look at a few other topics as we close out the year, and very much looking forward to that and to the next few episodes over the Christmas period. So thank you very much. We'll see you then.